AP Psych, welcome to your second lecture of Unit 2. It's all about the nervous system. We are going to try to see if we can squish all of our notes on one page, well, maybe a front and a back. But make sure you're using the notes I provided because it's got some graphic organizers that will really help you break down all of the components of the nervous system. So let's get started. Here are the College Board learning targets. And we're diving right in. So the nervous system consists of all the nerve cells, all of them. They're all in there. It is the body's speedy electrochemical communication system. Note it's both electro and chemical. So there's electric signals going through, that's the action potential of your neurons, and then there's chemical messengers shooting between the neurons. Those are your neurotransmitters. In the nervous system, it has two main subdivisions, and then we're going to have some more subdivisions after that, but there's two main ones. First of all, the central nervous system, also known as the CNS. You will see this all over your notes, sometimes different articles that we read. That's a pretty common abbreviation. And that is the spine and the brain. It's pretty easy to remember because it's the central position of your body. So the central nervous system, just your brain and your spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, the PNS, which is still a common abbreviation, but we won't see it as much because there's another thing that could be abbreviated like that. So I try to stay away from that one. Think of your peripheral vision. That's what you see out of the sides of your vision. It's kind of like the outer portion of your body, and that is the sensory and motor neurons that connect that central nervous system to the rest of your body. So it's kind of the outer nerves as opposed to the central nervous system that is just down the center of your body. The central nervous system consists of the brain, the neural center of the body, and in other words, the body's control center. And then the spine. This is where your nerves really lie. Because you have nerves, I think I've mentioned this before, you've got nerves that can be as long as your body, nerves that are microscopic in length, and all sizes in between. And they all connect the brain to the spinal cord, which is what's going to connect to the outer nervous system in just a minute. I'll talk about that again. And this is the body's way of transmitting the messages to and from the brain. So the superhighway of nerves, the thing that comes up and down your whole body, connecting your nerves in your fingertips and your tongue and your toes and your butt and everywhere to your spine, which then talks to your brain. Now we're going to break down the peripheral nervous system, and that too has two subsections. First of all, the autonomic nervous system. This controls involuntary functions or items that happen automatically in our body. Things like breathing, heartbeat, digestion. You don't tell your heart, okay, it's time to pump now. It was pumping the minute you came out of the womb. In fact, it was pumping a lot earlier than that. And so your body does these things automatically to stay alive. And so we've got these symbols like the heart and the lungs right there to help us remember that these are the involuntary movements of your body or functions of your body. You can think of this as the automatic system, but be very careful that you don't use that term in an FRQ. You can use automatic to just help you remember it, but you want to formally say involuntary movements. So you are not choosing these movements. You're not choosing for your heart to beat. You are not choosing for your lungs to help you breathe. On the other hand, we also have the somatic nervous system. When we learned about the neuron, we learned that soma means body, as in cell body. Well, here, soma or somatic is referring to your bodily movements. So your voluntary movements and the communication to and from your sense organs. Like, I sense that my teddy bear is soft, and so I am choosing to pet it. You choose, I choose to move my hands when I talk, even though it feels like I don't, and it feels like my hands have a life of their own. It is still my decision to move my hands. It's my decision to move my mouth to talk. So even though things like moving your hands or walking might feel involuntary because they come so natural, you did not always know how to do those things. So the movements of our body come from a reaction to our senses around us, come from our choice to move our body from here to there or to gesture and things like that. So your somatic nervous system has to do with the things that you control. Now we can take this little arrow just appeared at the bottom of my screen because we can, of course, because we're not done yet, we can take the autonomic nervous system and divide that into two. And that is, the first section of that one is the sympathetic nervous system. And I'm just going to pop the other one on right here because it's easier to explain when I can compare them. And the parasympathetic nervous system. So on this part of your slide, or of this part of your notes, we're going to just jot down the brief descriptions, and then we're going to take a deeper look again in just a second. So the sympathetic nervous system. This is your action system, your fight or flight, your body get ready for something system. It's like one of you said today, it's like game day, baby. You're feeling like a dragon, you're fired up. It's game day. This is your sympathetic nervous system springing into action. Your body is becoming aroused, and no, I don't mean the sexual arousal in this case, although the sympathetic nervous system is involved in that. I'm talking about alertness. You're becoming physically alert, and you are prepared to act or react in stressful situations, and you're using a lot of energy. The parasympathetic nervous system calms the body down. It's conserving its energy to help that state of homeostasis, keep your body temperature regular, and then jot down this phrase, rest and digest. I'll explain why that's important in just a minute, but definitely write down rest and digest. On my personal notes, I also have stop and calm with the parasympathetic nervous system. If you think of the word parachute, when you drop from the sky, the parachute opens up and it slows you down. So parasympathetic acts somewhat like a parachute to slow your body down. You'll notice on the next page of your notes, I've got a picture of this slide and the next slide. So you could get away without writing anything down, but I still suggest you add notes as you see fit. So let's go into the sympathetic nervous system in a little bit more detail. This is your fight or flight system. So when your body needs to get amped up for something exciting, or more commonly react to something dangerous, this is what happens. So let's say you are walking down the street and you feel like there might be someone following you and you're in danger. What are some of the things that are going to happen to your body? You might be able to tell me right away. You might start to sweat. Your breathing might pick up its pace. Your heart might start to pound. And that's exactly what this nervous system does. So first of all, it inhibits digestion. If you're in that much danger, it is not important that your body break down your food in that moment. So that will stop. And that will conserve some energy to use in other ways. Your glucose will start to release, your liver will start to release glucose to add fuel to this energy consumption. It is signaled by the endocrine system, which we'll talk about in another lecture, to release epinephrine and norepinephrine, or sometimes we refer to it as adrenaline, by the adrenal gland. Your pupils might dilate, which means open wider, so your vision will improve temporarily, and your breathing will increase, and your heart rate will increase to oxygenate did I say that right? I'm not sure. Your blood. So in other words, every part of you is going to kick into high gear to make sure your body can respond to stress. However, we do not want your body under all that stress all the time, or it would collapse. I mean, sometimes that's why heart attacks happen. So we have a second system, the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is your rest and digest system. So this one will kick in either to prevent your body from getting so stressed out that something dangerous happens, or it will calm you down when that stressor is gone. So let's say, turns out the person you thought was following you wasn't actually following you. They just happened to be walking the same way and they were being a little bit creepy, but now they've gone down the other corner and you're good to go. You're feeling safe again. At this point, Your parasympathetic nervous system will make sure that you can start digesting again. It will contract your pupils down to their normal size, and your breathing and your heart rate will slow down. So this is your rest and digest system. Next, I want you to go back to your previous page of your notes. And in the bottom right corner, we still have a couple more bubbles to fill in. And these are the bubbles for the different types of neurons. In our previous lecture, we learned about the basic structure of neurons, and that structure holds true for all of these that I'm telling you about, but then there's these subcategories, of course, of neurons that we need to know as well. The first one is a sensory neuron, sometimes called an afferent neuron. And these carry incoming messages or information from the sense receptors in the peripheral nervous system to the CNS, which sounds really confusing when you put it all out there like that. But think about it. Right now, I am touching my cup of water. It is cold water. And so my sense receptors in my fingertips are touching this glass, and then it's going down through my arm into my spinal cord, up to my brain to say, this is cool water. So in other words, sense receptors to the peripheral, that outer nervous system, into my central nervous system to tell my brain what this is, what my senses are experiencing. So you touch something and notice the direction of this arrow. This goes into my brain. In fact, you might want to take the arrows or the web lines that I have on your paper and turn them into arrows. So the sensory neurons go into your central nervous system, into your brain. Next, we have interneurons. These are the only neurons in the CNS. So your central nervous system only is comprised of interneurons, and they act as the messengers between sensory and motor neurons. So they kind of connect back and forth between the two. And this will start to make more sense the more we get into the other type, which is the motor neurons. And these are your efferent neurons, and they carry outgoing information from the central nervous system to the peripheral nervous system and its muscles, and your body's muscles. So let's say my sensory neurons see Bucky Badger here, and it's just sitting on the table. And my eye sensory neurons tell my brain, oh look, there's a bobblehead doll. I want to flick it and make it wiggle. So then my brain can use an interneuron to send a message to my motor neuron of my finger to go boop, boop, boop. And so now my motor neuron is choosing to move my finger so I can wiggle my Bucky Badger. Okay. So those come from your spinal cord and go out to your muscles and tell your muscles what to do with your body. I want to touch on a few mnemonic devices that some people have found helpful when learning the difference between afferent and efferent neurons. So if it's an afferent neuron, maybe you can think of your affect with an A, the affect that's on your face. It's kind of like when you're showing your feelings or your emotions with your facial expressions. So if you think of your afferent as your affect or your feelings neurons, then maybe that will help you remember that that's your senses, your sensory neuron. For example, like the way you can touch or feel something. Another one is for efferent. You can either think of efferent because it starts with an E. It's the exiting messages. So it's exiting your central nervous system to the other parts of your body. Or maybe thinking of it as efferent starts with an E, like engine, and an engine is like the motor neurons of your body. Whatever works for you in learning these. One last thing to talk about, and that is reflexes. Have you ever put your hand on maybe a hot stove and then moved it back before you even realized it hurt? That's because of your interneurons. So a reflex is when a sensory neuron talks to your interneuron, but then it does a quick U-turn to your motor neuron, so you quickly move your hand. And that will ensure that you don't waste time with that sensation going to your brain for your brain to ponder what's going on and then to say, uh-oh, I better send a message to my motor neuron. So the interneuron is capable of a U-turn and skipping the brain, and that is how the interneurons create a reflex in your body. So isn't the nervous system was going for a dramatic ending and I stumbled on my words. Isn't the nervous system fascinating?